I'm Mary, 32 years old, living in the state of Oregon. Last week, I bought an old house in the suburbs for $3,600, the last of my savings after 8 years working in customer service. The house was run down, with cracked roof tiles, peeling walls, and a backyard full of weeds. But it was mine, fully under my name, no loans, no one else's say. But when I told my family, all they heard was, I didn't transfer $12,000 to fund my sister Vanessa's soul replenishing retreat to Sedona, Arizona. That day we were gathered around the dinner table at my parents' house in Eugene. The roast chicken was dry, the white wine overly sweet, and the air thick with unspoken expectations I'd grown used to. My mother, Eleanor, was going on and on about the benefits of a 2-week meditation retreat to restore spiritual energy. Every eye turned to Vanessa, my 27-year-old sister who'd dropped out of college and now called herself a certified holistic life coach. $12,000 is nothing compared to everything she's done for this family, my mother said, her voice syrupy sweet. Vanessa gave a soft nod and sipped her wine as if she were a priestess blessing the meal. My father, Ronald, turned to me. His expression wasn't harsh, but it was cold and resolute. You said you transferred the money last week. Why haven't we seen it? I set my fork down, trying to keep my voice steady. I'm not transferring it. I bought a house. The room went silent. The clinking of cutlery stopped. Vanessa froze mid-sip. My mother furrowed her brow, and my father narrowed his eyes. A house? My mother repeated, each word deliberate, like she couldn't believe what she was hearing. Yes, an old house in Grants Pass. It needs a lot of work, but I'll fix it myself. At least I'll have my own space. Vanessa let out a short laugh and shook her head. You really spent all your savings on a dump while I'm trying to heal? Never asked for my input, I replied. And I never agreed, I just didn't say no out loud. My mother set her wine glass down with a sharp clink. So you've chosen poverty over supporting your family? You're separating yourself, Mary. I opened my mouth to speak, but my father raised his hand, cutting me off. If you want your own path, then walk it completely. Don't expect anything more from this family. I sat there, heart pounding, throat dry. No one defended me. Not a single why. No words of encouragement. The next morning, I woke up in my old rented apartment to a notification. Removed from the family group chat. Easter, the only time we ever truly gathered, was canceled due to missing key participants. A message from my mother followed. It was brief, emotionless. Don't come anymore. Stay well. I sat silently in my car, parked in front of my new house. Rain drizzled down the windshield. I didn't feel victorious, but I didn't feel regret either. Just an ache in my chest, like I had walked out of a family play in which I was never meant to have a leading role. I popped open the trunk, pulled out my old fold-up chair, the same one I used during work breaks in the company parking lot, and set it down on the gravel in front of the house. I sat, facing the chipped front door. They called my decision reckless, but in that moment I knew I was finally starting to live, for real, even if it was in the middle of a wreck. I sat motionless on the cold folding chair. The rain had stopped, but the ground was still soaked. The house in front of me looked more like a challenge than a reward. Streaked walls, dusty windows, and a crooked breaker panel as if someone had tried to take it apart and given up. But at least this time, it belonged to me. A breeze passed, making me pull my thin coat tighter, my hand instinctively gripping the chair's handle. Then, like someone had suddenly hit play on an old film reel, memories rushed in. Not of the most recent time I'd been pushed aside, but of all the times before it, back when I still tried not to see it. When I was 10, on my birthday, I made my own sandwiches to bring to school. My mom said she was busy meeting with Vanessa's gifted piano teacher. While other kids got balloons, lollipops, and ribbon-wrapped gifts from their parents, I sat alone at the end of the table, chewing a dry sandwich with no mayonnaise. No one at home asked me how the day went. Vanessa's birthday was 3 weeks after mine. That year, Dad rented an ice cream truck, hired a clown, and strung paper lanterns from the porch to the backyard. I still remember Vanessa in a lavender dress, dancing under small fireworks, while I, on Mom's request, held the camera to capture her special moment. Another year, I won first place in a district essay competition about one thing I regret. I printed it and left it on the kitchen counter, hoping someone would notice. By evening, it was soaked from Mom's cold drink, and she never read it. Vanessa, meanwhile, was preparing for a small statewide speech contest, though it was just a local high school club selection. I used to think it was forgetfulness. Maybe they were tired. Maybe I wasn't impressive enough. But by the time I was 16 and invited to speak at graduation for having the highest GPA in class, and the entire family still chose to attend Vanessa's regional dance showcase in Seattle, I knew it was no accident. I don't hate my sister, but there are things she always had: admiration, preference, forgiveness, that I could never reach. When Vanessa placed third in a charity cooking contest, the family threw a backyard BBQ to celebrate. When I got into the honors program at the University of Oregon, my mom simply said, "Hope you can manage tuition so it doesn't mess up our financial plans." The only time I truly snapped was at 21. Vanessa accidentally set fire to the research notes I had worked on for 3 months. I yelled. She cried. And my mom, she didn't ask what happened, didn't even glance my way. She just held Vanessa and said, "She's sensitive. Don't scare her." That sentence sliced through me like a blade. I remember walking outside, sitting in the car with the fan on for an hour, tears running down my collar. And I didn't even bother wiping them. Sitting in front of this broken down house now, I asked myself, what exactly had I been waiting for all these years? A word of recognition? A hug? One moment where someone would choose me over her? Nothing. And maybe there was never any intention to offer it. Something in me shut down during that dinner when my father said, "If you want your own path, don't expect anything from this family." It wasn't a punishment, it was confirmation that I didn't belong there, that I could disappear, and life would go on as if I never existed. I reached into my coat pocket, opened an old text from Mom. "Don't come anymore. Stay well." And I didn't delete it. Didn't reply. I just sat there, my hand gripping the chair so tightly my fingertips turned white. The only warmth I had left was the thought, if I ever truly had a place in that home, I wouldn't have to rebuild my life from scratch. The old brick house in front of me smelled of mildew, the walls worn, the door creaking at every shift. But at least it didn't pretend. It was broken and it was honest about it, unlike my family. I moved into my new house on a windy Wednesday afternoon, carrying exactly 3 bags: an old mattress, a ceramic tea set I bought while working at a bookstore, and 1 cardboard box filled with documents, journals, and letters from my college years. Among them were a few unsent drafts, angry paragraphs written to my mom, my dad, then crumpled and stuffed into the bottom of the box. I hadn't installed the power yet, hadn't sealed the windows against the wind when my phone buzzed. The screen lit up with a name. Aunt Dolores. I froze. Dolores? My dad's younger sister lived nearly a 3-hour drive away in Medford. She'd lived alone her whole life, ran a small, handcrafted decor shop, and raised 3 fat cats. She was the only one in the extended family who had ever stood quietly in my corner during those countless family conflicts. Through a glance, a shoulder pat, a silent presence. I hesitated for a few seconds, then picked up. "Mary? It's me. Dolores?" "I know. Hi, Aunt." Her voice wasn't warm, nor was it cold, just steady, no small talk. "I heard. Your mother called, said you were impulsive, destroying the family atmosphere and leading yourself into a dead end." I let out a dry laugh. "That sounds familiar. Same words they used when I chose sociology instead of economics." "Mm-hmm," she replied briefly, pausing. "I didn't call to tell you to go back. I don't think you did anything wrong. I just want you to stop hoping that someday someone in this family will see their mistake, Because they won't. I said nothing. Wind slipped through the crack behind me, pressing my shirt to my back. Mary, she continued, they don't hate you. They just don't know how to deal with you. You've always been the one who refuses to play along. You won't pretend to be pleased, won't bend just to keep things smooth. So they chose the simpler route. Pick the one who's easier to praise, easier to mold, easier to control. You mean Vanessa? Yes. I'm not saying she has no value, but her value lies in being agreeable, not capable. You're the opposite. You make them feel insecure. I bit my lip. That hit like a needle through a thin layer of scar tissue. I'm calling so you'll remember one thing. Her voice softened. Someday they'll come to you. When Vanessa's in trouble, when they need a place to stay, need money, need someone to take the fall, they won't come out of love, Mary. They'll come out of convenience. I gripped my phone tighter. Each word pierced the thin hope I had stubbornly held on to. So, what should I do when that day comes? Remember today, she said slowly. Remember how it feels to be cut out of dinner for not playing along. Remember your name being erased from the family group chat. Remember standing in front of a crumbling house and feeling more at peace than you ever did with them. Hold on to that, because when the time comes, you'll need clarity more than kindness. Silence stretched. I could faintly hear a cat meowing on her end of the line. Thanks, Aunt, I said quietly. I thought maybe it was just me. Don't be naive, Mary. Anyone who survived a family built on favoritism knows blood doesn't always bond. Sometimes it bleeds you dry. We didn't say much else. She just told me to call if I ever needed anything, then hung up. I sat in the dark, heart tangled. One thought echoed in my head. They will come back, not to love me, but to use me. I turned on my phone's flashlight, stepped into the kitchen, and opened the toolbox. I started tightening each outlet, sealing window edges, checking the gas line. Not because I believed anyone would show up to help tomorrow, but because I understood now. This house, this life, is something I have to protect with my own hands. If I let go, they'd make me their backup plan for their own failures again. The wind howled through the roofline again, but this time I didn't shiver. I just recalled Aunt's voice. Don't forget today, Mary. Memory is the only thing that'll keep you alive next time. And next time, I knew it would come. I was on my knees, scrubbing the kitchen floor with a damp cloth. The smell of cleaner still sharp in the air, even though the window had been open since morning, when I heard a knock. 3 sharp raps. Short and precise. Not like the postman, and definitely not a neighbor. Wiping my hands on my jeans, I walked to the porch. Through the dusty curtain, I recognized a silhouette I didn't expect to see again so soon. Vanessa. She stood at the door, looking too polished for the setting. A beige trench coat, hair tied in a neat bun, a limited edition Louis Vuitton bag in hand, and high leather boots that clearly weren't made for my uneven, muddy driveway. Her face wore its usual soft smile, but her eyes flicked around sharply. "Mary!" she called, like she was greeting an old friend. "I finally found you. I figured it out after doing a bit of Instagram searching." I said nothing. I nudged the door open slightly, my silent way of allowing her in. If it had been the old me, I would have shut her out immediately. But now, I needed to see what game she was playing. "You've really given this place character," Vanessa said as she looked around the modest but clean space. She walked in like she belonged, set her purse down on the wooden chair, took off her coat, and then turned to me, her voice suddenly gentler. "Mary, I'm in a bit of trouble. It's about the spa." I folded my arms and leaned on the door frame. "Be specific." A pipe burst, flooded the whole ground floor. The repair guy says it'll take at least 3 or 4 days to fix. I don't have anywhere to stay. I hate to impose, but you know I can't stay in a motel. The mildew smell will destroy my lungs. And I live with mold every day. Vanessa gave an awkward smile, not denying it, just lowering her head as if guilty. I sighed. A part of me wanted to slam the door in her face, but Aunt Dolores' warning echoed in my mind. Don't forget this feeling. They'll come back, not out of love, but because they need something. You can stay for tonight only, I said firmly. No guests, no filming, don't touch anything. Vanessa raised her hand like taking an oath. I promise. But I knew her promises were like gift wrap, shiny on the outside, hollow inside. I set her up on the long couch in the living room with a thin blanket and an old pillow. She didn't look pleased, but forced a grateful smile. I went to bed early, but couldn't sleep. Around midnight, I heard faint footsteps, followed by soft clicking sounds. I tiptoed out, keeping the lights off. From the hallway corner, I saw the flicker of her phone's flash bouncing off the kitchen walls. Vanessa was live streaming. This is where my sister lives, she whispered into the camera, her tone soaked in sympathy. The phone camera panned over the modest kitchen, the chipped walls I hadn't had time to paint. A strong woman surviving family trauma. She doesn't want anyone to know she's struggling, but I'm here to share that with you. I froze. My throat burned. The stream was live, not just a recording, and heart icons and comments poured in. Thanks for sharing. You're such a kind sister. She's lucky to have you. She didn't mention being cut off by the family, how they offered her money while I was kicked from the dinner table for keeping my savings. She was rewriting the story, casting me as the wounded bird and herself as the savior. I stepped forward, voice like ice. Turn it off. Vanessa startled, instinctively pulling the phone behind her back. I was just trying to help, sharing your story so people can relate, maybe even donate if needed. You're turning me into content, and you promised you wouldn't film. Her face tightened for a second, then relaxed as she slipped back into her sweet persona. I'm only doing it for you. People will understand better if they see it. Turn it off now, or get out within the next 5 minutes. Vanessa stood still for a moment, then dropped her gaze. She turned off the stream, detached the little ring light from the tripod, and unplugged her charger. She didn't say a word, but I saw it in her eyes. It wasn't regret. It was strategy. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I sat in the cold kitchen next to the unlit gas stove, sipping lukewarm tea, and thought I had let a wolf in just because she wore a nightgown. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of giggles coming from the living room. Early sunlight slipped through the dusty window slats and shone directly on a ring light I didn't remember ever owning. The unease from last night returned instantly, like a sharp chill slicing through my chest. I stepped out barefoot, the cold wooden floor grounding me with every step, a reminder that this was my home. Vanessa sat cross-legged on the only usable chair in the living room. Behind her, the peeling wall I hadn't yet repainted. She wore a cream-colored cardigan styled perfectly with a silk scarf, her makeup subtle and her smile ready for camera. Her phone was mounted on a tripod, live stream already in session. Good morning, my angels. Today, I want to share a little glimpse into the truly humble life of my older sister. She said in a voice soft as morning dew, then turned the camera toward my rusty fridge and the sink that still had no hot water. This is where she's been living for the past few months. A space that needs love, that needs healing. I know it might look rough, but don't judge by appearances. She paused, looked directly into the lens. Judge by the pain. That line hit me like a slap. I stepped forward, voice low and sharp. What the hell are you doing? Vanessa jumped, but quickly turned the camera away. Mary, I'm just trying to spread some empathy. This is the truth, right? It's your house. People have a right to know. Know what? That I'm living in my own house, not begging anyone for help. That you, the one who once called me selfish, are now using someone else's hardship for clicks. She awkwardly ended the live stream and set the phone down, but not an ounce of remorse crossed her face, only calculation. I didn't do anything wrong, just shared the reality, she shrugged, and honestly, it's helping. 3 hours later, I found out she had created a GoFundMe campaign. Title, Help My Sister Escape Poverty. The cover photo? Me crouched on the kitchen floor after sealing the pipes, hair a mess, grease on my hands. Subtitle: After family trauma, my sister lives in harsh conditions. Help her find the light again. My hands shook as I clicked View Details. Total raised $17,800. Recipient: Vanessa Nolan, Wellness Coach, LLC. Not one line said I didn't consent, not a single word mentioned I had no idea, and certainly no sign the money would ever reach me. I went back to my room, shut the door, fury boiling. It wasn't just betrayal, it was being made a public joke. In front of thousands of strangers, I was now a pitiful subject. The poverty-stricken sister someone needed to rescue. I opened my phone and replayed the live stream she'd posted earlier that morning. In the video, Vanessa said, voice trembling like a stage actor, "Some people stay silent because they're used to suffering, but we can't let them stay invisible. She's my blood and I can't just stand by." In the comments below, hundreds expressed sympathy, sent money, thanked her for being brave enough to speak up. And me? I became the unwilling side character in a pity performance she scripted and starred in. I didn't speak, I didn't cry, I didn't scream. I just sat there, the screen's glow lighting my face like the cold light of an operating room, revealing every contour of disappointment. Vanessa walked in holding a green smoothie. "I'm doing something good for you," she said. "Maybe. You just don't see it yet. But you'll be grateful someday." I looked at her, silent, and for the first time in my life, I no longer saw a relative. I saw a stranger, with a face borrowed from my memories, but a soul I didn't recognize. One thing was clear: not a single word from her was true, and not a single dollar from that fund was meant for me. I started saving everything, every live stream clip, every photo, every line of text in the GoFundMe campaign Vanessa built, from fake tears and borrowed compassion. I didn't say a word to her for 3 days after I found out. But each night, while she slept soundly on the couch with a sheet mask on and lavender candles flickering, I opened my laptop, saved screenshots, time-stamped everything, and logged the list of donors. I'm not a lawyer, but I know what fraud looks like. On Tuesday afternoon, my phone buzzed once in the quiet, a message from an unknown account. "Hi Mary, I'm Alyssa Park, a certified paralegal in the state of Oregon. I came across a GoFundMe campaign under your name, but the funds are going to someone else. Would you like to talk?" I read that message 7 times. Not because I doubted it, but because out of hundreds of comments praising Vanessa, out of dozens accusing me of being too prideful to accept help, this was the first time someone saw the truth. I replied with one word: "Yeah." Alyssa responded almost instantly. She asked me to send all the evidence I'd gathered, screenshots of live streams, the campaign's update history, the donation logs, and of course the clip where Vanessa called my kitchen a relic of the economic crisis era, before giggling. 1 day later, we met via Zoom. Alisa wasn't much older than me, but she carried herself with confident professionalism. After a few minutes of talking, I knew I could trust her. "Mary," she said, "I've reviewed everything. If you're ready, we'll send a cease and desist, an official notice to immediately stop the exploitation of your image, identity, and financial fraud. If she ignores it, we can escalate to a civil lawsuit. There may even be grounds for criminal misrepresentation in soliciting community funds." I nodded. I want to do this the right way. No live streams, no call-outs. I just want her to never use my name for profit again. Alyssa smiled. "Then let's get started." We planned carefully. I didn't tell Vanessa that I knew. I didn't turn off the lights when she filmed. I didn't stop her from calling fans and lamenting that my sister is showing signs of depression and refusing to communicate. She had no idea I had recorded that too. 3 days later, Vanessa announced a major online event, Live Community Talk, Family and Healing. She promised to share the most touching story she'd ever told. And, as always, she cast herself as the hero of her self-painted masterpiece. Alyssa sent the cease and desist right as the live stream began. I didn't watch the event live. I sat in the kitchen, sipping hot tea, staring at the message on my screen. Delivered, signed at 6:04 p.m. By evening, Twitter exploded. A clip went viral. Vanessa was mid-speech when someone from backstage handed her a thick envelope. She tried to maintain composure, but I knew that flicker in her eyes all too well. That tiny tremble when she got caught. Her hands shook as she opened the letter, eyes scanning each line. Then, a black screen. The live stream cut off abruptly. No outro, no explanation, just silence. That same night, clipped videos flooded Reddit and TikTok. Vanessa served with a cease and desist live on camera. Someone just ended the community healing career of this influencer sister. An anonymous account posted a screenshot of the GoFundMe page and quoted the platform's terms. The beneficiary must be clearly identified as the recipient. The name Mary started appearing all over the threads, this time not as a figure of pity, but as someone standing up for her dignity. I still said nothing. I didn't post, didn't argue, didn't go live to explain. I just quietly did something Vanessa never could. Let the truth speak for itself. The next day, I received an email from GoFundMe's legal department. They asked if I had consented to the campaign Vanessa created. I replied with 3 words. Absolutely not. Attached was a compressed PDF file containing 23 pieces of evidence I had compiled. Each image, each clip, each comment Vanessa had ever left. I closed my laptop, exhaled slowly. The battle wasn't over. But for the first time in many years, I didn't feel like a passive bystander in someone else's narrative. On Friday night, I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the navy dress that fell just below my knees. It wasn't expensive, but the cut was neat and respectful. Around my neck hung a slightly scratched silver necklace, the only gift my mother had given me after high school, along with the words, "Don't let anyone see you as less than them, not even by an inch." Back then, I thought she was teaching me confidence. Now I realize she just didn't want me to embarrass the family. I left the house at 6 o'clock and drove to the Riverlight Convention Center, where Vanessa's Healing Forward Gala was being held. I didn't have an invitation, but I knew I wouldn't need one. Alyssa had arranged everything, and this time the truth would take the stage on its own. The banquet hall was dazzling. Warm golden lights, banners with Vanessa's radiant smile beneath the words healing, giving, community. She stood near the entrance, shaking hands and beaming at guests dressed like they'd stepped out of a magazine. Cameras flashed nonstop, and behind-the-scenes TikTok clips were already being posted. I slipped in quietly, unnoticed. I chose a table near a corner column, out of sight but with a clear view of the stage. About 45 minutes later, the main program began. Vanessa stepped up to the podium, wearing a beige satin dress that hugged her frame just right. Under the spotlight, her face looked almost unreal. "Thank you all for being here tonight," she began, her voice honey-sweet. "We're not just fundraising. We're creating a wave of healing that ripples through the community. And as with any journey, family is the heart of it all." I took a sip of water and waited. Behind her, the giant screen lit up. Originally meant to show a slideshow of people helped by her GoFundMe campaign, the first 3 slides showed smiling children, a community garden, and the words, "Hope begins at home." Then came the 4th image. It was a screenshot of a private message exchange between Vanessa and her assistant, Christy. "Vanessa, let her rot in that dump. We'll get enough donations." Christy, "Does she know?" Vanessa, "She doesn't need to. Quiet works better. Pity is the best tool for engagement." A murmur spread through the hall. Someone near my table whispered, "What the hell? Did she write that?" On screen, the messages continued. Another line came into focus. "Vanessa, add the hashtag reborn from ruins to the caption. Blur the cracked floor. It'll look more tragic." No one said a word. The stage lights stayed bright. Vanessa stood frozen, staring at the screen behind her like she couldn't believe she was being exposed, publicly. A camera flashed, then another. The whole room felt like it cracked under the pressure of silence. I stood, not yet stepping forward, when a voice rang out from the head table. "That's enough." Aunt Dolores, in a deep green blazer, stood up, face calm, eyes sharp. I'm Dolores Graham, Mary's aunt, the woman being used tonight as a tool for profit. Vanessa tried to raise a hand to stop her, but no one was looking at her anymore. I used to think silence was the right choice, that every family had its issues. But now I understand. Some things cannot be swallowed, cannot be forgiven with flowery apologies. The spotlight shifted to my aunt. The camera flashes exploded. We cannot talk about healing when the one leading it built her platform on someone else's pain. I stood frozen, throat tight, and I choose to stand with the truth. I stand with Mary. The applause started small, but spread quickly across the room. People who just smiled at Vanessa now pulled out their phones, recording, whispering. Some got up and walked away from their tables, visibly unsettled. Vanessa remained on stage, pale as a ghost. The sweet voice was gone. The composed demeanor vanished. All that was left was panic, raw and smeared beneath mascara that had begun to run. She rushed off stage, her dress catching on a table leg, toppling a flower arrangement in her path. I didn't follow her. I just stood beside Aunt Dolores, my chest light, like I'd finally set down a boulder I'd been carrying for years. That night, social media exploded with clips exposing the healing guru, tagged with Vanessa exposed, healing at what cost, and Mary deserves better. Morning light broke through after last night's rain, and a few drops still clung to my porch roof. I set the newly planted sage pot on the windowsill, the scent of damp soil and mint drifting gently in the breeze. The walls that used to peel have now been painted in a soft yellow I chose after 3 nights of indecision. The kitchen, once the centerpiece of Vanessa's pity campaign, now held thrifted baking tools and a hand-embroidered towel from Aunt Dolores, gifted on my official rebirth day. Rebirth sounds poetic, but really it just started with me doing one small thing at a time, replacing light bulbs, mounting cabinets, digging up the old garden. There was no one left demanding I explain every decision, no one casting me as the shadow behind someone else's fake spotlight, and absolutely no one turning my pain into their stage. Each morning, I brew coffee, turn on the jazz station, and sit on the porch with whatever book I feel like reading, something I used to put off out of guilt for daring to live just for myself. The neighbors have started stopping by more. Miss Janelle from house number 14 often brings over warm apple pie in exchange for tomato seeds. The kids on the block love drawing with chalk on the sidewalk in front of my yard. They draw suns, hearts, even portraits of my cat, though I've never owned one. One Saturday morning, as I was dusting the window, my phone buzzed. I didn't need to check to know who it was, but I opened it anyway, just to be sure. Vanessa, sis, I know things have gone too far, but now I don't have a place to stay. They canceled my lease, and I need time to get back on my feet. I don't want to be a burden, just a few days. I'm sorry. No mention of that night. No word about the tens of thousands of dollars from GoFundMe that vanished. Not a single line acknowledging what she said. What she did. How she stripped me of dignity, privacy, and my belief in what family was supposed to mean. I wasn't angry. I wasn't glad either. I just felt quiet. I set the phone down on the table, poured more coffee into the ceramic mug I'd bought from a garage sale, and stepped out onto the porch. In front of my house, 3 kids were writing something large on the sidewalk with pastel chalk. I watched from a distance as they laughed and fought over the yellow and sky blue pieces. A curly-maged girl turned, waved at me. "Miss Mary, do you think this line looks nice?" I walked over and knelt to read it. The letters were a little wobbly, some misspelled, but still they tightened something in my chest. "You are not invisible anymore." I laughed and gently patted her head. "I love it, I really do." I walked back inside, picked up my phone, and typed a simple reply. "No, you're not coming in, and don't come back." I hit send, then block the number. No trembling hands, no regrets. Because I understood now, forgiveness doesn't mean letting someone continue to destroy what's left. And loving yourself doesn't mean being cruel. It means setting the boundary where harm is no longer allowed to return. 10 minutes later, the doorbell rang again. I figured it was Miss Janelle with cinnamon rolls, but it turned out to be Aunt Dolores holding a pot of purple lavender and a small wooden frame. "I thought this might go well by your front door," she said, her eyes shining with pride. I opened the frame. Inside was a photo of me, smiling, a real smile, not forced, the day we stood on the porch together after hanging the new house number sign. Below the photo, in her handwriting, it read, "You built it, you live it, you own it." I nodded. This $3,600 house was no longer the dump someone once used to exploit me. It was the foundation I laid down myself, not for anyone's approval, but so I could exist, whole, without conditions. And for the first time in my life, I knew with certainty I no longer needed anyone's permission to call this place home. My story isn't just about an old house. It's about reclaiming my voice and my right to live on my own terms after years of being overlooked and used. What I've learned is this: sometimes you have to walk away from those who always demand sacrifice but never offer fairness. No one gets to define your worth by the pain they've caused. When you dare to rebuild from the rubble with your own hands, you don't just create a home, you build a whole new life that you truly deserve. What do you think about how Mary stood up to her family and took back control of her life? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to follow the channel so you don't miss more inspiring stories about life and family.